If you ever tried to deploy Fargate service with Node.js runtime, you might notice that it's much more harder than deploying Lambda. So why is that? You have to set up a lot of things like Docker image, cluster, network, ECR repository, and so on. Let's look at this article. Here you can see a code example of SQS Fargate service. And we can see that there is a cluster, task definition. You also need to set up service itself. You need to set up scaling, and you also need to set up a lot of other things. And in the end, you also need to set up a Docker image and service itself. To solve this problem, I built open source package called Fargate NodeJS package. In this video, I'll show you what problem this package solves, what's the architecture behind it, how deployment looks like, and I will show you some examples of how this can be used. As already mentioned, in order to deploy such service without a package, you need a lot of things like Docker file, task definition, ECR repository, and so on. In comparison, with Lambda Node.js function, you need as small thing as this. You just have to define this package, you have to define path to entry file, and that will be it. This abstraction package handles deployment, ES bundle, runtime, EM roles, and so on and so forth. And the reason I built same for Fargate, because I always wanted something like that for Fargate. I built many services with Fargate, and every time what I needed to do, I needed to define a lot of code. Sometimes I copy-pasted it from previous service, but I always was kind of jealous to Lambda Node.js function, and I wanted to have same package. And the idea behind my package is that you only define one construct with all the properties needed. It can be HTTP service, it can be just scheduled job or SQS. If it's HTTP service, it can accept port mapping. It's also accept type of autoscaling, so it's pretty flexible. So here's on the left, you can see how usually Lambda Node.js function looks like, and on the right, you can see how my package is defining Node.js service. So it's pretty similar, right? Before jumping into the code, let's look at architecture, what it actually deploys. So simple example, we'll deploy Fargate task. It will be in private or public subnet. It will not deploy a load balancer, but you can also additionally define load balancer, and it will deploy logs, and it will deploy ECS cluster. And by default, it will use internet gateway. Let's look at the source code of our service. So this is our main class, Fargate Node.js service. As you can see here, we define bundler. I basically copy-pasted this logic from Lambda.js Node.js function, not gonna lie. I just used what they have because it's pretty good. Here you can see we define VPS, cluster, task definition, everything we usually do when we create Fargate service. Also log group, container image. We also build in Docker files. I can show you later how it looks like. Here we define container. If we need port mappings, if it's HTTP service, we define port mappings. Then security group, it's always important to have security group for your both Lambda or Fargate service. You can use this security group then for accessing things like database, maybe proxy or other thing in network. And here we define in service itself. And at last we have load balancer. If we need it, we can pass it down. And autoscaling. So for the autoscaling, we have three types of autoscaling: CPU-based, memory-based, and queue size-based. This one is my favorite because I actually didn't find a lot of examples of how to set up SQS worker on Fargate. And yeah, first time I did it maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, and this is not a very often use case, but sometimes you need to process messages which can take longer time, for example some long-running processing jobs, maybe video processing, and you cannot use Lambda for this kind of jobs. And also we define permission for task roles. It's just the default thing we do, and adding environment and adding secrets. For the bundling, we use bundler very similar, which Lambda has, but much simpler. It's very simple package. For now, it has limited amount of functionality, but maybe I will improve it later. And at last, we have Docker point, and Docker file is just simple one. I don't use multi-stage Docker build here because ES bundler just builds JavaScript files already, and we copy these JavaScript files. We don't run install inside Docker. So let's look at the basic HTTP example, how to use our Fargate service. So here I am defining basic stack. Here is log group, and here everything you need to define a Fargate Node.js service. You just have to set up entry point, runtime, your Fargate container, CPU and memory, port, some environment, and some bundling properties. And this is like everything you need. And yeah, let's try to deploy it and see how it works, see what will be deployed. I can show you that in my console we have no clusters here. So now we're gonna start to deploy it. So this is just normal CDK deploy. You can see a change set of stacks, what actually will be added to our AWS. It will deploy CloudFormation stack, and CloudFormation will be used to deploy actual resources. So it's done. Let's look in AWS console to see what was actually deployed. Let's reload, and here we can see we have cluster, basic example stack, we have service deployed, and we have task running, and we also have logs. Let's look at logs. Server is listening on port, which is good. That's what we wanted to see. This is logs from here, just a basic Express application. And now we need to find our IP address. This is it. This is IP address. It's not gonna work unless we define our port. Here we can see it works, and let's check. Another, yes, it's healthy, it works. Yeah, as you can see, it was pretty simple to define your Node.js function, Express service. This is everything you need. Just install package and use this service. Let's take a look at another example. SQS Worker. So SQS Worker is a service which will process messages from SQS queue. Same way, you just have to define your Fargate Node.js service. You have to define autoscaling based on queue. And yeah, that will be it. We don't need public IP, we don't need port mapping, only this, and we need to allow Fargate service to consume messages from SQS because we need to approve. Usually you can also pass this flag, require approval never. It will allow you to deploy without approval. Usually I do it for test environments, but for staging production, I would still have this approval open. If you run it in pipelines, then of course you don't need to require approval. In pipeline, you need to also pass this flag. For the SQS service, what it will deploy SQS queue, it will deploy Fargate tasks, CloudWatch logs, and Fargate task will consume message from SQS queue. Wherever task is ready, and if message is visible, it will be consumed and processed. If queue is not FIFO, there will be no order. So yeah, and let's look in source code. What this application does is pulse messages using receive message command. Then we have the messages. We iterate our messages and we process message. And yeah, that's it. What processing does, we just showing process data, but what we don't do here, we actually don't delete messages, but we should. In Fargate, you need to delete message. Oh, we actually delete messages. Yeah, we process messages, and at last we delete message, so it will not be consumed by other service. What you need to know about SQS, when you receive message, you have something like visibility timeout, and you have 30 seconds to process it and to delete it. If not, this message will be visible again, and it will be processed by another task. When do I recommend to use it? Whenever Lambda has its own limitation, and you need a service, long-running service, which can process messages or HTTP requests for longer time, or you need heavy resources, then I would recommend using this, and you don't need to set up complex Kubernetes cluster, and you don't need to write a lot of boilerplate code for Fargate. You just use this package, and that's it. Finally, we deployed SQS service. Let's look what was actually deployed. Another cluster. We have our SQS service and we have tasks. We have one task running. Let's look at logs. No message received. Yeah, it started working. Let's test it. We have also SQS queue deployed. Let's send message. It should be in JSON format because we have JSON parse function. Message was sent. Let's look at the logs. Let's maybe open it in CloudWatch. So here message was received and it was processed successfully. Building this package reinforced few things to me. One, developers don't hate AWS, they don't hate cloud, they hate a lot of boilerplate. Second one, Fargate is underrated. And third one, good abstractions remove decision making but not power. If you ever thought I want to build a Node.js service on AWS, but Lambda somehow doesn't fit you, my service, my package might be very useful for you. Also, if you want to contribute, please go on my GitHub page. It's also linked to NPM package, and you will see how can you contribute. It's basically standard procedure. You create a fork, you create a feature branch and pull request, and hopefully